This is Intro to Blender. This is the first video of the series. It's going to be covering basically how to move the camera, how to manipulate objects in 3D space, and how to basically get your way around Blender. So I'll start off by talking about how to move the camera itself. A lot of people get frustrated immediately. Don't worry. What you're gonna need though is a 3-button mouse. So if you don't have one, you need one. In order to rotate the camera, what you do is you hold down the middle mouse button and then move the mouse around. That'll rotate. If you hold shift middle mouse button, that pans the camera. If you roll the middle mouse, scroll the middle mouse wheel, that zooms. Alternatively, you can hold control middle mouse button, that zooms as well. So now that we know how to get around, let's put a little simple object in here. I'll start with, here's your basic primitive objects. A lot of modeling can be done by starting with the primitive. It's probably the easiest way to do things. So I'll start by just adding a cylinder. When you add primitives, there's options here where you can change how much geometry it has. I want something that's not, well, let's just do something that's fairly detailed for now. Depending on whether you're doing it for games or animation, depends on how much geometry you actually want. You don't want to use more than needed if you're doing games. You can set the radius, the depth, which is height, set the location here. It's good to set it all to 0 to start. Okay, so we got a basic object. Now let's see how to look at this object from different viewports. So this is the basic perspective viewport. We can look at it in different ways. If you want to see the front, you can press 1 on the number pad. If you press 5 on the number pad, it switches between perspective and orthographic. You can see that it's more of a blueprint, straight-on view as opposed to a normal perspective view. So that's good for making fine changes to objects. If you want to do really detailed work, sometimes you'll need what's known as a quad view. You can press Control-Alt-Q, which will give you front, front, back, top, left, right, front, right. You can set these to be whatever you want, actually. So, front, you can have a right side, a left side, and a top and a bottom. When you're building things from blueprints, it's very helpful. So to get out of that, Control-Alt-Q, go back to 1 viewport. 5 will put you back into perspective mode. Now let's cover how to move objects around. You'll see there's this little manipulator tool here. That'll let you move things. You can grab that here. The short key is G. I guess for grab is what I remember it as. If you look down here, this is your transform, which means move, so you can move it on the X, Y, or Z axis. If you have something grabbed, you can actually press the letter X, Y, or Z to constrain its movement to that axis. You can do that with any tool, so if you're doing it with, if you have the rotate tool selected, you can press X, Y, or Z. So it's pretty helpful if you're making changes only on one axis. If you want to edit the object itself as opposed to just move the thing as a whole, you press Tab to get into edit mode, and that brings up the wireframe. There's different ways to select things from here. The easiest ones to remember are A for all, B for box. So if you press B, it has this little box you can drag and select, or C for circle. So those are your different ways of selecting. You can see when I select it, it doesn't select the back faces. So if I press Z, it makes it see-through, and now I can drag select and it'll select behind that. Press Z again and I make it so it's not see-through. Now I can move single faces if I want. And instead of normally like you would left click, you right click to select faces here. You can also right click and then hold shift to add to your selection, or if you click back on them, it'll also deselect. And again, A will select all or deselect all. Another little tricky technique is, well, let's do a little bit more to this. Let's say I want to add some more geometry in here. So I'll go ahead and select, these are your different selections. You can either choose vertex, which are these single points. A single point like that. This is an edge right here, edge select, which would be the line between two vertices, so it's the edge. Or you could select by faces, which is the shape that's made between the vertices. So in this case, say I want to add a cut to this, I can go ahead and grab my edges and then press Z so I can select through, B so I have my box select all these edges, and then I'm going to want to go to tools over here and press loop, cut, and slide. So that'll give me a cut, which if I want one, I just left click, fine. If I want more, I can roll my mouse and get multiple cuts. So I click, then I can slide it to where I want. Now I have a cut. Let's see, maybe I want to extrude. That's a very useful tool for modeling. I select a face, I can press E and it'll extrude automatically. Or it's right here, extrude. There's different ways to extrude, so I'll show you what those do. Okay, so say I select all these, I press extrude by region. It'll either move them all, but I want to actually scale, so I'll press S for scale, and I can scale them. I can constrain where they're scaled. But instead of that, I'd rather do extrude. There's individual faces, so I can extrude just singular faces. Maybe I want that kind of look, which is good for like a wheel or something. And what else can I say that you can do? Oh, okay, here's one. Say I want to pull this out, but I want to pull it out softly. There's something called proportional editing. If I press enable, now when I go to move something, there's this circle that's a fall off rate. So either I move this just by itself, if I increase the circle, it'll bring the geometry nearby it. So now I can get more of these interesting shapes. It's really good for organic modeling. You can pull things out softly instead of just real sharp movements. So that's kind of some of the basics of modeling. I will cover more in the next upcoming tutorials on how to unwrap more advanced modeling techniques such as modifiers and other tools like that. But this was just a brief run through of how to manipulate things in Blender. So hope it was helpful to you guys. Leave comments below if you have any questions, and I will have more of the series as I develop them. Alright, thank you.